My brother and I were both readers, and at some point along the way, I decided that I wanted to be a writer. So I started to type up stories on an old typewriter, and I started to send them to magazines, and I pounded a nail into the wall, and I'd get the rejection slips back, and I would put them on that nail, and around the time that I turned 17 or 18, the nail fell out of the wall because there were so many rejection slips on it, so I got a bigger nail. And if there's any secret that I know to success, it's if you don't succeed, get a bigger nail. So that's what I did, and it worked out. And eventually I started to sell a bunch of short stories to magazines that don't exist anymore. And they were the sort of magazines, if you turn them sideways, a gatefold fell out of them. But they paid actual money, and I was working first in a laundry, and then I got a job teaching school for the princely sum of $6,400 a year. My wife and I married young, had kids young, so we were stupid, it happens. And those checks came in handy. Of course, I was very proud, and I wanted my mother to see my published stories, and my wife came up with this beautiful gimmick. She would photocopy them, and she would put strips of blacking over the ads for the X-rated movies and the dating sites and all the rest of it. And I sent them off to my mother, and she was always pleased, and she would always say, "What magazine was that in?" And I'd say, "Well, actually, Mom, it's in one of those men's magazines, but it buys penicillin for the baby's ear infection," and she liked that. So I started to write novels. I was not successful at first, and I wrote this novel in 1 week, because 1 week was what I had. I sent it off to a science fiction publisher, and actually got back a note that said, "There is no market for dystopian fantasies." And I thought about that a couple of years ago when The Hunger Games and all these other books came up, and I thought, bullshit. There's no market for dystopian fantasies. I was ahead of my time with that. It all worked out eventually, and I did sell my first novel, Carrie. The advance was $2,500, which came in very handy because we had a very old car, my wife and I. And we were able to trade it for a Ford Pinto, and later found out that they explode. But it was a new car, so what the heck.